Hi, nice to meet you, Guy.
Hi. There we go. We begin. Simon, what's up? How do you feel?
Feel good. Look, very excited to share some learnings with your massive audience and help companies to sell a bit better.
Thank you. I appreciate that. I appreciate your time coming here and sharing your knowledge. This is part of our masterclass for sales for early stage founders. What are we going to talk about today?
So I'm splitting it into 3 topics. Social selling, so using LinkedIn to really push your personal brands. Referrals, how to leverage referrals, which is really critical when you're an early stage company. And also how to negotiate price-wise when you want to give something away, but you want to get something back in return. So some tips around that. Amazing.
And then a lot of people probably are wondering right now, who is Simon? What makes him eligible to give us this masterclass? So with no further ado, maybe a few words, a few sentences about yourself.
I think I'm eligible because you invited me, Guy.
Yeah, of course.
But beyond that...
and they have no choice.
Exactly. They have to listen to it come what may. They can pause, but that's about it. So I'm originally from London, but living in Israel for 19 years. I've been in sales for the past 27 years on the co-founding team of 2 tech companies that were both acquired. And since that time, over the past 4 or 5 years, I've advised probably about 100, 120 companies on their sales and marketing strategies through my company, Pipe Global, alongside my business partner, Robert Curtis.
Wow. All right, cool.
Yeah.
And there we move on.
Sure. So what I want to start with today is the importance of social selling. And I mean, it's got the name and the title, selling. So a lot of companies and individuals get this wrong. And it starts from the obvious premise that people buy from people. So how do you leverage new relationships on a channel like LinkedIn, where we know a lot of your buyers and prospects are? So LinkedIn themselves have got what they call a social selling index. And if you Google your name, LinkedIn social selling index, you'll see your own ranking. And it ranks it by sort of the strength of relationships you build and a lot of things around that. And you can maybe see where you've got room to improve. But LinkedIn themselves recognize this and have built a scoring around this for each individual on LinkedIn.
Oh, wow. And how can I improve this score? Just be more active there?
Well, a lot of ways. So one of the ways you can do it is by connecting. So you haven't got 50 connections, you've got 5,000 connections.
There's a difference, of course.
Yeah. The other is posting content, that they love it when you post content. But just as importantly is engaging with other people's content. They don't want to be a conversation where you speak and no one answers. So I think it's very important that you're engaging with people, particularly in your market, within LinkedIn themselves, and they score higher based on that.
All right.
I mean, in terms of the professional brand as well, LinkedIn have got some great stats, like 81% of buyers, they're more likely to engage with someone that's got a strong professional brand. 92% of B2B buyers engage with sales professionals that are already demonstrating domain expertise. So how do you start to do that domain expertise? So for example, and this is wasted real estate, LinkedIn have got this really big banner space in the background, and people maybe do a picture of the skyline or something. They're not making use of it. And where I see this most effective is where companies are consistent. So they're using that banner space with maybe something that's catchy, 4 or 5 words that encapsulates
and it's
their
on
brand
also.
On their own brand. But the thing to do then is to have consistency. So everyone is posting the same types of things within the company. So they're maybe saying, hey, we do this for our company, and everyone's using exactly the same format and same words. And
like we see in the slide here of the titles of people at DealHub.
Exactly.
For example.
Exactly. So DealHub's a good example. You can see all the way through the company, everyone is using the same formats. And they've also got the same background image, the same colors. So you start to see the purple. And another company I work with...
This is a slide that shows the background picture of people's profile on LinkedIn, right?
That's right, yes.
So just for our audience, those who only listen, which would be usually the majority in this podcast, we just want to mention once again that all episodes of our masterclasses also can be found on YouTube. And there you can see an actual presentation that Simon is now presenting to me with the concrete examples and concrete methodologies that he's going to be talking about. So...
Thanks,
up to you.
So you see, you start to recognize the colors, the images, the branding. So it's very important that you're selling as a company, not as an individual. And that doesn't mean you're not promoting individuals within the company to represent the brand better, but it's a team effort. So you've got to all support that within the team. In terms of when you approach people, so there's a lot of testing that I've done over the years with various companies. I think overall, should you or should you not personalize a LinkedIn invitation? Overall, probably you should, rather than just clicking add, and give some context. certainly not to be salesy. And just the most generic one would be, hey, I noticed we're in the same industry. Would love to learn from you.
Would love to connect.
Would love to learn from you and connect. And no sales message, and don't hit them straight away. But that's just keep adding. There's no point investing in a LinkedIn strategy if you've got 3 followers. So you've got to keep building every week. I mean, I've got up to about 28,000 followers now, but that was nurtured over time through posting consistently about similar topics to people in that crowd.
Yeah.
In terms of how to really stand out on LinkedIn. So on LinkedIn do not want to see, for obvious reasons, just company post. They don't want to see the commercial. So they would much rather that most of the content is active, engaging. So that comes from personalities, individual people. Because
the actual stories of the people that work in your company, or the thing that happened in your company.
Yeah, the things that happen maybe in their personal life, even that they can turn it into a lesson. I had an example here, maybe for your viewers who are watching online. This is an example of a company that we work with, and they have a technology for surgeons, and it's a technology where they're making it automating the processes because it's very manual in the US with faxes here, and et cetera, et cetera. And instead of just saying, hey, bring everything online, they gave a real example in this case of a company that had a runner. They had 2 surgeries, and they were running across busy highways with everyone's personal records, which is obviously legal anyway. But giving that is a much better example than just saying, hey, why not automate and move online? It's 2023.
Yeah.
And that so people want to
a story that actually demonstrates the need.
A story that demonstrates the need, that can engage people. So that LinkedIn much prefer that. So they don't want to just see the same thing time and time again. And companies tend to promote themselves and not in such an engaging way.
And then maybe I should have asked earlier, but why LinkedIn? Why is it so important to be present on LinkedIn?
Everyone's there. Everyone's there. And
if you're selling software, you have to be there.
You have to be there. You have to be there. Everyone's there. And I've worked in companies in like very non-techie spaces, and they said, no, my audience aren't there. And we've done research together, and we found them one by one. They have to be there for their careers. Now, are they checking in once a day or once a month? That's a different story. But what we do know is everyone is on LinkedIn. They have to be in order to build their career these days.
All right, cool.
It's a non-negotiable. The other thing is, in terms of, this is what I mentioned before about the LinkedIn social selling score and social selling index. It's one thing to keep promoting yourself, but if you want to start to establish domain expertise, and people want to buy from experts, from people they trust, one of the ways to do that is to engage with other content that's already out there. Now, that could be your potential client, like a prospect's content. It could just be an industry leader, but it's commenting almost like, I call it like piggybacking on existing content. They've done the work for you, and you're adding your 2 or 3 sentences, particularly if it's like there's hashtags there and people are following, and it's a niche type of trend and comment. So that's very important as well, not to just think invest in yourself, but also to
invest in your brand, in your profile, and create content. You also need to engage with other profiles in other companies.
Exactly.
All the time.
Yeah, all the time, constantly.
Should I map the profiles that I want to engage with and actively decide who I want to engage with, or just let the algorithm pick for me?
I think it's, if you've got, say, 5 or 10 top prospects for the next quarter, they're bigger companies, you know it's going to be a nurturing. I would start to maybe actually target people. And LinkedIn have got the facility where they've got like the bell on the profile, so you can actually click on the bell. And if everything's working smoothly, as soon as you post, Guy, I should get notification that you've posted. So that saves me going in and searching every day to see if you posted. So
cool.
It does the work for you. So that's a good tip for your listeners and viewers, to click the bell on people's profiles that they want to specifically engage with. And often it will be people, not only prospects that you haven't spoken to yet, but on there's long sales cycles, people that you're still trying to engage, but you can't say, hey, any further thoughts? And very importantly as well, your existing clients. People think, okay, they're a client now, job done. Not at all. They need to be seeing your content constantly as well.
Yeah. All right.
So definitely engage with your contents, the content of your target audience. You want to be leading the conversation. So that could be through podcast channels, the type of thing we're doing today, for example. So you're hosting a conversation in the industry. But there's also lots of content out there, not just people posting on LinkedIn, but existing content. There could be an article on the BBC website, on CNN, on Fox News about cybersecurity, and you want to put your little spin and add your 2 cents worth to that conversation. So people who I work with often say, well, how do I keep posting content all the time? sometimes it can be like spur of the moment. I'll see something online, not even on LinkedIn, and think, oh, that's interesting. And I'll quickly share the article or the video and just put a couple of words to get a conversation going. So it doesn't always have to be original content. A lot of the work's already done out there for you in the industry as well.
So not every piece of content that you share have to be your own original. You can also reshare other stuff, other people's stuff. All right.
And what you're trying to do then is, it comes down to this domain expertise, this, I hate the word, like the thought leadership, where you're demonstrating in your space that you understand what's going on and that you're an authority. And like we said, people want to buy.
And you have something to say about that.
You have something to say, and people can trust when you recommend a software and a solution, much more likely from a sales perspective to do that when they trust that you're an authority in that particular niche.
Got it.
Other things as well, and I call share your clients' wins. So let's say your clients signed a new partnership or they've opened a new office. It's a nice, easy way to stay engaged with them. And it could be a client, it could be a prospect, it could be someone that you want to speak to that you're not speaking to with already. Just if you're on LinkedIn, you're seeing there's always ideas of how you can engage. If you're not there, then you're not in the game, and you're almost irrelevant in terms of a sales process in a way. And one of the first things that people will often do is when a company approaches them, it might be a cold email, it might be a phone call. They will go to the company profile on LinkedIn, and if they see the last post was 6 months ago, they think, oh, this company's dying, it's on its way out. So first impressions are important, and they'll also look at my profile as a salesperson. If I've got 10 followers and it looks like I started the job yesterday, my credibility goes down compared to if I've got X amount of followers, if I've been in the industry for a long time, if they can see that I post regularly about the industry. So that first impression in a sales process, you can control that much better than you could in the past. You don't know where they're looking you up.
Yeah.
And it comes down to discussing pain. You know, I've seen it on some of your other masterclasses. People are always talking about identifying that pain and talking about it. So this is an example. Again,
don't talk about what you're doing. Talk about like the problem.
Exactly. So this is a client we work with in the fashion space, and they were very much in terms of the carbon footprint. So they were talking about the unsustainability of returning things in fashion, and it suited their brand quite nicely because they were all about a one-size-fitting solution where you didn't need to return clothes. So instead of just saying, buy our solution, they're saying, how can we cut down on waste in fashion? Yeah. It just happens as a nice segue into their product, but that's, again, a good way to do it. And in terms of selling, you don't want to always be sell. It's part of it subliminal, it's subtle. The best way to do it is to undersell. So sell by underselling. And if you are using LinkedIn in the right way, there's plenty of channels to express that.
Yes.
In terms of LinkedIn itself, we talked briefly about the company page versus the individual page. So the way I try and explain this often is think of the company page as the BBC, the CNN. It's the broadcast page. So we've just announced a new partnership. We've opened a new office. We've recruited a new VP product. We've signed this client, et cetera, et cetera. So that's about progress in your journey. So that should be quite different from the individual posting. You can't just be posting as an individual, always saying, hey, we're signing up a new client. So it comes back to telling the story.
You can't just send out press releases. You need to tell like your personal stories.
So exactly. So the media, everyone's a media company these days. So your company profile is your media page, and what you're doing on your profile page is you're hosting a chat show. Think of it as like the Oprah Winfrey show. So something where you're hosting a conversation in your industry. And as I said, there's so many ways to do that. But if you already think of LinkedIn in those two ways, much easier to pull that off successfully.
Yeah, I agree.
Another idea and tip for your followers on this series, on this masterclass is, and we did this by ourselves in our last company, is create groups in your industry. Now, there might be some existing ones. Think of it as, you might have a real estate professionals group there already. If there isn't one and you're in Nashville and that's your technology, your company, etc., set up Nashville real estate professionals, start to add content, start to invite people. Then that's another great way to establish expertise, trust, domain relevance as well. Set up your own group. Something that most people don't think of. Very easy to do. You go into LinkedIn, you can do it in 30 seconds. And that is the ultimate hosting conversation when you're controlling the streams
community,
as well.
Yes.
You're hosting a community. Think of what credibility that gives you. So just a quick recap before we move on to the next section. always like to give a quick recap. So corporate announcements is the BBC versus the individual account, which is the shorter post, more engaging, and the stories. Always think, and I do this myself when I talk about sales, I could just in a dry way say, hey, this is how you sell, or you give a personal example, a story, something relatable. Or what I often do is I give a sports example. It's just one of my areas that I really like. So I try and think of a sports story and tie it back to a sales learning from that.
Yeah.
There are things you can do as a company to, as I said before, sell as a team. So if you've got a Slack channel, WhatsApp group, etc., you can be promoting that it doesn't just disappear in the feed.
Yeah, your internal posts.
Exactly. So exactly that. You promote your internal post. LinkedIn want to see what happens in that first hour. If you post something, Guy, and no one responds to it, they think, okay, that wasn't a good post. It's not up to his usual standard. We'll bury that one quite nicely, and no one will ever see it again. If there's 20 comments and 30 likes and some engagement and people scrolling down, they'll say, wow, this is an interesting post. And you'll see that you can post almost the same thing and you could get 2,000 views or 20,000 views. And you look at the content and something got picked up early and something didn't. So you can control that as a company and sell together as a team.
Yeah.
Share those news articles with your commentary, join or create those industry groups, and always be growing your network. So there are various products that your listeners might be aware of, things like Duck Soup, Expandy, Walaxy.
You can brief them on your ICP and then they suggest you new people to connect with?
Yeah, and they can also connect on your behalf as well. So they can start to be growing your network for you, but in a way that respects the LinkedIn algorithm and the restrictions, etc. So it does it in the background, and you go on holiday and you've got another 30 followers.
Yeah, you don't need to be afraid to be blocked.
Yeah. And it also just increase, if you've got a corporate page, I see quite often a corporate page, the first thing I do when someone wants to work with me, I'll look at their corporate page. Some of them have got like 100 followers and they've been going for 2 years. Like you could do that in a month. So you need to be telling the story, but making sure you've got an audience to tell that story to. So that wraps up the first section on what I would call social selling, which is a key area. The next section, and this is massively underutilized at every level that I see, and it's the most powerful way to sell. And I'm going to go through why it's powerful and then give some tips of how you can leverage it. That is referrals. And how do you build a customer referral program? Particularly important when you're an early stage company and your closing rates are going to be lower. Let's be honest, when people don't know who you are and you haven't got the track record or the credibility, it's harder to close a deal than it will be in 3 years when you've got 500 clients and X amount of industry support behind you.
So just to make sure that I got this right, we're talking about how to use existing clients to get referrals to new clients, right?
That is that, Guy. And I'll give you a surprising tip as well about not just new clients as well, but we'll cover that at the end.
All right.
But it's a good question. So the reason I think I'm well qualified to talk about this is because I've been able to do this twice myself. So one of my first jobs in sales was I was a visiting tailor. I worked for an American company called Tom James. It's the largest direct tailoring company in the world. We used to go to very busy executives in their offices. I was in Canary Wharf in London, like a big sort of financial legal area. And the idea was we would go to their office and measure them up for tailor-made suits and shirts and put the whole wardrobe together. So that's the subject for another thing about how you cross-sell. That would be shoes and overcoats, raincoats, ties, etc. But the way we did it is we almost had like a business within a business. So the first day I get there, they say, listen, Canary Wharf, that's your patch. It's an old-fashioned, you don't hear that so much now, your patch, because it's more like, physical, geographical. So I said, okay, well, who's worked there with us already? They go, no, that's your patch. You need to build it up. But good news, we've stolen the directory from JP Morgan. I know it was Morgan Stanley from Morgan Stanley. Here's the A to Z of Morgan Stanley. And that's your starting point. So I started dialing and seeing who the senior people were who could afford the suits. But ultimately, I built up that whole business up from 0 to 500 clients in 2 years through referrals, because I would wait till they had the suit on and they were as satisfied as possible and say, hey, this is a good fit. Anyone else on the Forex trading floor you think could do with some nice new suits? Not saying that they're scruffy and not well dressed, but they would just give name after name. And I'm going to give some tactics in a few minutes about the best way to do that. So that was one way, one experience I had of it. The second one is my current company, Pipe Global. So I mentioned we've worked with 100, 120 clients. It's pretty much all been from word of mouth or referrals. So an existing client will be happy with the experience. And often it's an untapped one. I'll get a message saying, oh, so-and-so really highly recommended you. I know they used you 6 months ago, etc. It is the best way. When they come through to us, they're not price resistant. They just want more to know about the process. That I don't have to sell them. It's the nicest, smoothest way to start a new business relationship. And it comes down to what we were saying in the LinkedIn social selling section, which is this keyword in sales, trust. So how do you build that up? So one of it is the personal brand, where you can build it up, like we said before. And the other way is to get someone who you respect saying, hey, guy, you need to speak to this company, this technology, this software, this lawyer, whoever it would be. And it comes with a lot of weight when it's from someone you trust.
Yes, I agree.
Yeah. And who can reject a request for help? And I'm going to give some tips later on. It's when people ask for help, it's not the sort of thing where you want to walk away. You stop someone on the street, you're lost. Very rare that someone works pushes you away. That people want to think they can help. And one of the ways they can help you, if you ask them, is through referrals. So there's language and tone to do that, and we'll cover that shortly. So just some referral stats, and this is a bit more visual. So assuming not everyone's got the video recording of it, I'm just going to run through these quickly for your audio listeners. People are 4 times more likely to buy a product when it's referred to them by a friend. And now you might be thinking that just means a florist or a regular service on your high street, but it goes beyond that as well.
It goes to software as well?
Goes to software as well. A refer customer has a 16% higher lifetime value. That doesn't sound like a crazy stat, but when you start adding it into millions, it's a lot of extra money.
Yeah.
And this is the most surprising. So on this slide here, 83% of satisfied customers are willing to provide a referral. 83%.
So this is very counterintuitive. You mean that if I have a good experience with the product, in the majority of cases, I would want to actively refer.
Exactly. Now, Guy, before I move to the next screen, which reveals the answer, how many do you? What percentage do you think do actually end up referring? Of the
less than 10%.
Well, 29%.
All right.
But either way, it's 29, 83%.
That shows there is also a business of referrals now. Yeah.
There's a business of referrals. So 83% are willing to provide a referral, 29% do. Why is that? There's very simple that people don't ask them.
Don't ask.
They don't ask. I was always taught as a kid, you don't ask, you don't get. So a lot of it's around mindset. So referral programs, again, we're back to the slides here for the audio listeners. 69% reduction of time to closing. So not only are you closing more deals, but you're closing them quicker. And part of that is because you've overcome that trust barrier.
Yeah.
And that
you have the
credibility
social
barrier.
signaling of another client that was already happy with your product and he made the intro. So of course it's going to be a smoother selling.
For sure. 59% achieve a higher customer lifetime value and 71% improvement in conversion rate. So that's, like for like, you have a new prospect coming in, you're much more likely to convert them if they were from that warmer referral than if you reached out to them cold.
Yeah.
So big advantage, and this is for all these early stage companies listening, everyone's talks in tech about your CAC, your customer acquisition cost. Now, one of the beauties about referrals, on top of everything we've already said, is it's going to massively reduce your customer acquisition cost because you haven't had to, go to an event to see them and bring them in. When you look back to how those 20 customers landed, if 10 of them were through referrals, you slashed your customer acquisition cost. So very attractive from that point of view. It's all about calls to action. So how can you do a call to action that's going to make people more likely to engage? I love before, like I said on the previously, about having a faster sales cycle.
Yeah.
And one of the big problems at the moment is companies aren't in a hurry to buy. We're in an economy as of August 2023 when companies are tightening their belts. Companies aren't spending money, and if they are, they're spending them in a much slower, more methodical way. Again, having that referral, that warmer, that trust there reduces some of those barriers and those frictions. So companies always want to sell more, but if you sell in June compared to in October, that's also got a huge impact on your bottom line as a company.
Yeah.
And ultimately, I always say, and I've got a great story around this, do you believe me or do you believe my customers? Now, people always think, okay, this guy's a sales guy, so obviously he's going to be telling the story. So I used to go to a lot of conferences and trade shows, and I did this trick a number of times, and it used to work like a dream. So I'd go to a show and I'd see a client. The client would come to the stand, we'd have like a free gift, and we'd start talking, etc. And then out the corner of my eye, there'd be someone who's waiting and hovering, and they want to talk about the product, but I know that they're not a client already. So what I could do is try and sell, the three of us together. But what I always did was just introduce them to each other. I said, oh, by the way, Guy, meet Tom. By the way, Guy's been using our product for 2 years. Tom, from what I understand, is interested in the product. I'm just going to step away and grab a coffee, but you guys, feel free to chat. No pressure there. I'm not listening in. Who do you believe more, me or my customers?
That's a good question.
Yeah. Well, hopefully it's always my customers. So, which is why that strategy works so well, and which is why referrals is such a powerful way, but so underutilized. It's such a crying shame. In the companies I work with, we really work out a strategy around referrals. Even customers they spoke to years ago, there's so many ways you can bring people back to the table in terms of referrals. So how do you build a referral-led business? And I'm not saying that you're never going to need to go outbound again. You're never going to go through other channels. I'm saying...
But you can use that as an actual legit sales channel.
How do you use it as a legit sales channel? How do you monitor it? How do you have a strategy around it? And I think it is important to have a strategy. It's not an ad hoc type of thing. So the first thing is give excellent service, which should go without saying. But if you're giving excellent service, it makes them look good. Like we've all got examples of having referred someone to a product or service which we, maybe used once or twice, we thought was good, and then our friend or our colleague used it and was like, sorry, that was a disaster.
Yeah.
And it reflects badly on us. So if you are giving excellent service, you've got a longevity of relationship, then they're much more likely to refer you. It makes them look good as well if they've saved the other company money, if it's like an ROI-based tool, for example. The other thing is let them know they need your help. So this is what I was saying before about the almost being a bit vulnerable, saying, hey, guy, I hope you don't mind me asking, but we've got 50 clients, as you know, you've seen our testimonials, and we've been working with you now for the last 3 months. But we really build our business almost exclusively through word of mouth and referrals. We find that's the most effective way. We don't want to be, just bombarding the market. Would you feel comfortable to help me and give me some introductions? So it's already about letting them know they need your help, which is why there's the 83% that would refer, but only 29% do, because no one asked them. And there will be the generous people that we see this ourselves at Pipe Global, where people behind our back will refer us. But how much more powerful would that be if we were asking everyone after a good experience, any other companies that might want an introduction to us?
Yes.
Yeah. And then it's how do you almost reward people that do that? So that could be a discount on the product in the next year. It could be give them an extra month free. It could be adding use licenses. There's so many ways you can play around with it. I always give a gift. If someone's referring me to a new client, give them a gift. It could be a voucher. It could be a bottle of whiskey. It could be whatever. And old-fashioned wise, particularly if it's someone in the same country, with a handwritten old-fashioned note rather than just something printed off. It's just got that legacy thing that I've invested time to write a handwritten note like the old days saying, thank you, Guy. I really appreciate that introduction. We're now working together, and you've really helped me build my business. It makes them feel good as well, and probably more likely next time to refer you again as well, because you've shown.
You show that you care. You show,
yeah,
and you've been active in saying thank you.
Yeah, and I've seen it the other way around where people haven't thanked, and I've seen conversations like in companies I work with where they've said, oh, by the way, I introduced you to that company 3 months ago. Is there anything ever happen? I go, well, I'm so sorry. I should have thanked you. Yeah, we're now working together.
Yeah, that's the worst.
That's the worst. But you can preempt that by having a sort of appreciation strategy that I would call in place.
Appreciation strategy.
Yeah.
Good. Very good.
Also, be specific about your ideal customer. So let's say you're a cybersecurity client and you're of a certain size. There's no point in them recommending you to a company that's got 4 people in it and that hasn't got any infrastructure around it. Sounds obvious, but if you want to get the best referrals, then say that
you need to be very specific.
Very specific. We're looking for companies that are 1,000 people. They've got 3 or 4 sites, et cetera, whatever it would be. They could be vulnerable because they're in the fintech industry. Those are our ideal clients, et cetera. And you're more likely to get that than just asking someone to be creative from the top of their head.
Can you also be specific and say this is a short list of 5 companies that I thought about reaching out to?
100%.
Do you know any of them?
100%. I've done that many times before myself. Mm-hmm. Yeah, part of it's about being bold, and it's about having a sales DNA, a sales mindset. Now, some people out there feel like this is, too pushy. If it's framed in the right way, it's not a pushy sales tactic. It's almost, you've got to use the right language and the right tone, and again, thank and be appreciative. But yes. People do it the other way around all the time. If you think when you're looking for a job, how many times I'm sure you get pinged all the time saying, hey, do you know someone at Amdocs? I'm looking for a job there, whatever it would be. So, and they can see you're connected. It's the same type of thing. And you can use LinkedIn again, get back to LinkedIn and seeing that I'm connected to the purchasing manager, the decision maker of that company. You've done the homework for them. I see you're connected to so-and-so at this company. We work with these types of companies. You're a happy customer. can you make that connection, please?
Yes.
Obvious ones are like industry networking events. That's always a good time where people are already in that networking, giving type of mood. So you're sort of jumping on the tone of those events. Those are some ways to do that. Other tactics around referrals, because again, you've got to have a strategy, not just say, hey, anyone that you know that could work with us. If they were a referred customer themselves, even better. You say, hey, you might remember that you were introduced by Bob, back 6 months ago.
We want to do the same with you.
We want to do the same with you. And I hope you don't mind it. You're much more likely to, if you were referred, because you say, oh yeah, I thank Bob myself, because now I wouldn't have known about you guys without him, and off you go. So I think that's very powerful. Emotive. Sales is emotional in general anyways. We're always talking about tapping in to emotion. I'm not saying you burst into tears and start crying, but you start to use emotion around it. Say, listen, this is a business that we've built up to 50 clients. We're still in the early phases. This is how we want to grow our business, and amazing people like you can help us on our journey. It's very hard to just say, good luck with that guy. We'll check in 6 months. I hope you find some new customers. You're likely to engage because you've got that direct request for help in the right language. Obviously, sharing client testimonials and things like that, which I know a lot of companies are doing already anyway. That's a good way to generate it as well. You can start leveraging that, piggybacking on that, and seeing if they can introduce people, because you know that they're a happy enough customer to have given you a testimonial. Like I said before, when you go to an event, that whole type of thing, even better than you approaching them, it could be that I approach them on your behalf. Get them to do the approach. Get them to tag you in a post, say, just wanted to do a call out to company X, they were amazing.
You can put, here's a graphic and a text that you can use.
Here's a graphic and a post. You can say, we thought it was going to take 6 months to onboard and see results. We're here 2 months in. We've already done X KPI. We're recruitment technology. We recruited 3 new people through this. Team were amazing. That, whatever it will be, much more powerful than you just sharing it from your corporate page. Again, when people think, oh, there's a commercial here.
Yeah.
So that's a subtle way to do it, and you can reshare it. Go, oh, I was amazed to get this feedback from this happy customer, but it's a nicer way to do that in the journey. Just as we do it online as well, let them connect. If they're not at a physical event, they're not sitting like we are today in front of each other, let them connect with each other. Say, I could just call Mary, but it'd be great if you maybe teed her up and mention I might be calling, or you set up the best way I always like is they do like a 3-way email or a 3-way WhatsApp or Slack message where you're tagged in, etc. And all you got to do then is reply and BCC them and off you go. That's the ideal, because often they'll give 3 or 4 names and then some people are still quite awkward about calling them and they hold back a bit. Yes. You're not going to do that when it's been served up warm on a plate for you. Referral tactics as well. So again, don't be too generic. Don't ask like, who do you know? I mean, that's people blank. So I was going back, if I go back to that example when I was building that business of tailor-made suits. So I could have just said, hey, do you know any other traders? But you could start to map it out. Say like, you're in the European desk. So who else sits in the European desk? And when they start, you could see them like painting pictures in their mind, going, oh, there's Sally, there's Chris, and they would start to go almost around the table, and then suddenly you've got all the names.
Yeah, they can visualize it.
They can visualize it and give them ideas. And if it was I used to say to them, and again, this is different for a corporate maybe, I'd say like, who's at your golf club? Like who drinks with you on the weekend? And suddenly from going from 0 names, they've suddenly thought of 4 or 5 people because they've boxed people into those categories. Now, this is a great tip that I learned myself when I was working for that tailoring company. Is honestly going back like 23, 24 years ago now. It works amazingly. Now, this is what we used to do. We used to ask for a referral, say like, all referrals, plural. At least we used to almost have, like, we'd have a referral book. So the first thing is they would see, this is again more old fashioned because it's not like on the Zoom, but they would see the referral book. So they would see and they'd see like pages before. It's like when you give a donation on a charity website, if no one's given a donation, probably you need like 3 or 4 people to donate. And to donate, if everyone donates $5, then everyone else is going to donate $5. If it's $100, then people up their donations. It's all been proven psychologically as well. So the same type of thing. So that would be an old-fashioned book. And what I would do is I'd say, hey, guy, do you know anyone else that you can recommend for our type of technology? And you'd come up with 1 or 2 names. And normally thinking, okay, I've given a couple of names, I'm done here. What I would do is, and again, if you're on audio, you can't see this, I would look down at the book and I wouldn't make eye contact. So I've got 2 names and I'm writing them down And all my body language is saying is that surely that can't just be two names. It's got to be more than that. And I'll be waiting there 10, 15 seconds. You had to practice it a couple of times. 10, 15 seconds just waiting there. And eventually 2 or 3 other names came. It worked like magic every time just because of almost like the awkwardness of doing that. And eventually they go, no, I literally, there's no one else I can refer, whatever it will be. But just think of that. If you're having 2 or 3 conversations around a month around it and you're getting just one extra name through using that tactic, and you do it on Zoom as well. It doesn't have to just be in person. On Zoom, you got your camera on, they're giving you a couple of names, you've broken eye contact, your head's down. Works on Zoom as well. So
it's like you're waiting for the third name.
Exactly.
Because it's so trivial for you. That's the show that you're making.
Exactly. Like everyone else is giving 3, 4, 5 names. Surely you don't know just 2 people in the industry that you can recommend me to. It's like that. And then as we can see, the chances of closing, all those stats we talked about before, all of those things are so much more likely to happen to close. So just 3, 4 of those extra ones could be worth tens, hundreds of thousands of dollars, depending on the product you're selling.
Yeah.
And it's just a small tactic that you need to practice and to get right. So get them to make the introduction, so much so that sometimes they don't know how to do it. So I would give them a text. I'd say, hey, light, casual, it's like 3 or 4 lines, just use this.
Here's something that you can use.
Here's something you can use because people...
Help them help you.
Help them help you because the people get lazy and they don't do it themselves. And then if they didn't want you to didn't want to make the introduction that way, then very soon after it, even if it might be... I used to do it, it was different with the seats. I used to do it like an hour later. I'd say, hey, did Guy mention I'll be calling? And chances are you hadn't because, we'd only spoken about it an hour ago, but for me, it was a hot lead. They would sort of say, no, but you've got straight through already. You've already got through, even if it's a secretary. In the old days, you'd say, well, I'm calling because Sally mentioned I need to speak to Bob. And then you used to get through gatekeepers that way as well. So once you've got that, you just got
It's a good opening.
It's a good opening. And you just got
they'll be wondering who's like Bob.
You just got to capitalize on it, but you've done the hard work already. So by then you shouldn't blow it from there.
Mm-hmm.
And then, I would send this email text that I would send.
This is an actual example that we see in the slide for those of you.
An actual example, and I'm personalizing the message. I'm explaining the relationship already. I'm trying to match the sort of tone of voice I know, keeping it polite, professional, appreciative, all the things that we said already, and really making it clear that you value their time, appreciate their help. This is more of a small business owner, but you can use this in any technology.
Mm-hmm.
I'm just going to read here for your audio. As a small business owner, referrals are incredibly valued for me, and I promise to provide the same level of excellent service to anyone you refer to me. So they're just types of that reminding them of how you helped them in the past and showing them that you're not going to drop your guard and give them an inferior service.
Yeah.
So that covers the section on referrals. And then the last section I wanted to cover today, Guy, and this is so timely because it's everyone's running into pricing, discounting, negotiations much more so than they were this time last year, budgets being cut, and technology companies were almost the biggest buyers of technology from other tech companies.
Yeah,
so
now everybody do like a reassessment of their budget.
They've reassessed their budget, but if you think of so many tech companies are selling to other tech companies and suddenly all of them are clamming up. So it's just become much harder. And we know that they're all getting the CFOs on the case saying, no, you can do better. I'm not paying that. So just some pricing tips that I want to run through as well, which I think once you've got the social selling and the referrals, the final barrier could often be the pricing. So it's just some tips I want to share today that you can remove some of that friction and get something back as well as giving something away, which is key to my strategy around pricing and discounting. So in terms of pricing itself, I know a lot of early stage companies are listening in, watching. A lot of it, you've got to A/B test. So many companies that I've advised, their pricing doesn't change every 5 minutes, but it's very rare that your pricing as an early stage company is going to be the same in a year's time. Yes. So don't over perfect it. You've got to
definitely
go to the market.
Not at a pre-seed stage. Understand that, this goes to a different topic of how to qualify and how to discover, and how to put the first sales. But don't get too attached to the pricing levels that you put on the early days. They'll change.
They'll change, but also it's a great way to learn. Like you learn which parts of the pricing were attractive and which ones were scaring people off. Yeah. So it's all
if they didn't negotiate, it was too low.
Yeah.
And if it ran off the deal and didn't answer, maybe it was like out of line.
Precisely that. Exactly, guys. So Round pricing, clear and transparent. So it's amazing how many companies have got these 7 or 8 different packages. And I was once in a strategy session with a client, and then it was round pricing. So before we sort of broke it up and start again or rebuilt it, they were meant to explain their pricing to me. And I'm kidding you not, guy. I was there for like 30 minutes and I got out there, my head was whizzing, and I was like, I still don't understand your pricing. And if I don't understand it, and I've been here sitting there trying to understand it to help you guys, there's no way in hell your customers understand it. And one of the reasons you're losing deals is because they just don't understand it. You're creating unnecessary friction in the sales process.
Yeah.
So originally for your sort of seed early stage companies, you want that competitive customer feedback. You want to track the metrics, so like how quickly you can close a deal if you change it up by this percentage down, for example. You don't really want to discuss price until you've articulated the value. And I listening into a lot of sales schools, a lot of recordings, etc. And often people like pre-discovery, or you're like, well, I'm pretty busy. How much does this cost? And sometimes salespeople fold like a pack of cards, and they're already giving the pricing, and they don't even know what they're looking at. And it could sound like $50,000 could sound like a huge amount of money, but if you've seen the half-hour demo and seen that you're going to save $500,000, then
maybe you can ask for more.
Maybe you can ask for more, but also it doesn't sound as bad as when the other way around, when you're just quoting it and haven't seen the value. So as a general strategy, wherever possible, you stay in control of the conversation. Don't give the pricing until you said, we'll cover that. I want to show you what you're getting first, and then we'll run through the various options. So it's a danger that a lot of salespeople do fall into that I'd recommend staying away from.
Yes.
But price is an amazing lever. You've got an amazing tool at your disposal for salespeople. You just got to know how to use it, when to use it, what the limits are. But if you've got some leeway on pricing, then it's brilliant. I mean, it's the way to unlock that final barrier in the sales process. So around that, there is a specific language around negotiation, and how do you build a negotiating toolkit, and also how do you give something away but get something back? There's too many what I call one-sided sales discounts. So if you sign by June the 30th, you get 30% off. And okay, great, I'll close that deal. Okay, I have to give 30% off, but I'll close that deal. What could you have got? I mean, maybe you could have done it for less. That's one thing, but what did you get back from the 30% discount? Never, ever give something away without getting something back in return.
So what should I have asked for?
Well, we're going to cover that. We're going to cover that now. Thanks for
all right.
preempting. So what I recommend is you have almost 2 lists. You have your concession items. It's a good exercise for every company to do. It's going to vary. And I'm going to go through some examples that, and you can start to hopefully get tease it out of them as well. So things that they're happy to concede, subjects to say red lines or limits. So these are your concession items. So you're really like in diplomacy negotiations at this point. So these are your concession items, but there's also your wish list items as well. So there's going to be, we'll cover now, there's going to be your wish lists that you want to get back, and your concessions that you're prepared to give away. And you're not going to give away all of them. You're not going to give 30% off and pay next year and get double the amount of licenses. You're going to have to pick which ones are right for that client. And you're also going to want to get things in return that are going to help you grow your business. And we're going to get onto those now. Mm-hmm. But you've got to get into that mindset of concession wish list. So concession items, what types of things could you give away? And I'm thinking particularly about SaaS tech companies. So the obvious one is price. So it's normally $20,000 a year. We can do it for, say, $18,000 a year, 17, whatever the number is. If it's a type of technology that's got users, it doesn't really often cost if you've got 50 users or 60 users necessarily.
Yeah, I'll give you 5 in the price of 3.
I'll give you 5 the price. I haven't discounted the price. That's a great way to do it. I haven't really discounted. I'm still getting my $20,000, but I'm giving you 2 extra users as well. You could delay the payment dates as well. Often you get people saying it's the end of our budget year. Installment, it could be you normally would take an upfront payment for the year, but you say, okay, in this particular case, I'm not going to close a deal unless they pay quarterly or monthly. You've got to take a pragmatic point of view as well. The contract duration. So that's one I've played around with a lot, and it works very well, say, towards the end of a calendar year. So you can imagine you get to October 2023, you've been trying to close this enterprise account for ages and they're just not budging. And what you say to them is, listen, good news for you. What we can do now is as you know, it's a 12-month contract, but the sooner you sign up, we're going to give you whatever's left of 2023 and all of 2024. So you can either sign on October the 15th and get 2.5 months, or you can sign on December the 31st. If you sign now, you're getting 2.5 months extra for the same price. It works really, really well. You can do it beginning, end of a quarter.
And again, we said for everything here that I give away, I can also ask for something back.
Yeah.
Which is what?
We're going to cover that now. We're going to cover now. These are the two lists. So you've got I know that these are my red line concession items. I'm not going to do all of these. I'm not going to discount, etc. But I know I can play around, and I'll get a sense from the customer if the duration thing will work or if they really want extra users. And I'll look back in my discovery notes. And
then you say, okay, I heard you. I'm going to give you a price level or a few more users. Yeah. And then what you're going to ask in return?
So then, or it could be a customization. That's the final thing. As an example, again, every company is going to drop their own list. So what are the wish list? These are typical wish list items, but each company is going to know, and it will depend on their stage and etc. So one of it could be a multi-year contract. So normally it's 1 year deal or 2 year deal, and you really want to show you don't want any churn, and you're in your first 20, 30 customers. You want to show that you've got 100% renewal, etc. One of the ways to do that is to lock them in for longer, or not to have to risk early customers when the product could be a bit shaky, there could be some bugs. Mm-hmm. So yes, I'm prepared to give you that price, but you're going to have to do a 5-year contract rather than a 3-year contract rather than a 1-year contract. Yeah. So you're locking in a longer commitment, which has got big benefits to the company. It could be agreeing an annual price escalation. We will discount it, Guy, to $8,000 for year 1, but clause 7, which I'm going to show you now, says that year 2, it goes back to the $10,000. So you're banking it. You're not going to get to that conversation where they just say, I've seen companies where someone paid $5,000 for the product in 2015. They're one of the original ones. Everyone else is paying like $30,000, and the company still, they were the first customer, still paying $5,000. That's crazy. So you can control some of that process as well. One of the things that I really love is like testimonial references. Yeah.
You want to get a discount or extra users?
Yeah.
Give a testimonial on my website, on your,
Exactly, give a testimonial, do a press release. So the testimonial is going to take a while, maybe. It could be a pre-launching testimonial. It could be one you do in the first month, but we don't want to wait a year for a testimonial. It could be we do like a video one, which is a more dynamic one, but you've got to agree to do that. I would even write these in the contracts. I get companies I work with to write these in the contracts. So there's not like, oh, sorry, we're not going to give that testimonial, or company policy. It's here, it's clause number 7.2. So testimonials, references, press releases, referrals. That's a great time to ask referrals. Yeah, I'm going to do that. I'm going to do that for you, but can you give me 2 or 3 other names of other companies in the sort of fintech space that would benefit from this solution as well?
Yes.
That's a brilliant way to do it. So you're giving something away. You could be giving a $2,000 discount. You could be getting a $50,000 deal in return. So that's why it's so important to have these items. It could be that you want them to appear on a webinar, a podcast, they're high profile in the industry. You've got to be creative, and it could be, it depends on that stage of time in the company. If you're looking for referrals, you haven't got any yet, then that's a great thing. You go all in on that. And then there's the one that's tried and tested, and a lot of people don't like it, but you can't argue with the stats, and it works. Saying, I can do that, but
you need to sign by the end of the month.
You've got to sign by the end of the month. You've got to sign by the month. And it's, again, written in the contract. This deal is only valid until July the 31st, 2023. August the 1st, this is the price. You can write in the contract, August the 1st, it goes up to that 30% extra. So, those are the examples of wish list items. And each company will go away, and it will depend at the point in time what those wish list items are. But never, ever, like I said before, ever, extra couple of evers, give away something without getting something in return.
Something back.
And you're giving them something, so why wouldn't they give something back in return? But it's amazing how many companies are missing the boat on these. And what I love about some of these things is, particularly in terms of the referrals and the case studies, you can get back a lot more than you gave away if you're asking for the right things in return.
Yeah.
And then just finally, negotiating itself has its own language, its own tone. So you want it to be casual as well. You don't want to be seen as like a market trader. Another $10. Oh no, they're just another 100 meters away, and you're like running after them down the market. So you're trying to be collaborative here, which is anyway very important in the sales process. So hopefully you've established a rapport by the time you're getting to these pricing negotiations. And my own way of selling is to be very collaborative. I'm helping you buy. I'm not selling to you. So using things like, just suppose, like, what if I was able to get a 20% discount. Do you think you'll be able to, sign by them?
Just wondering.
Yeah. Would you be able to give a couple of names, like warm introductions? Would you be able to appear on our podcast, etc.? And then it's almost like, right, guy, if you do this, I will do this. It's almost like a contract in its own right.
Yes,
this is
but without saying it in this specific language.
Exactly. You're not using it as a thing. If you do this, I'll do this. Just suppose we can do this, etc. So you're keeping it in soft terms, and it really opens the way for a lot of these pricing negotiations. And I'd recommend that highly to anyone that's listening in at the moment.
Yeah.
And that's really everything I've got to cover today.
Oh, wow. Amazing.
Yeah.
All right, Simon. It was a pleasure to interview you.
Thank you.
And thank you. It was very... I got a lot of things out of it. I wish that I had my notes with me.
You have to watch it back and listen to it. Listen to it on your next run.
Yeah, it was really good. Simon, thank you very much.
Absolute pleasure, Guy. Lovely to meet you.